Hey guys, welcome to the channel. I wanted to do a quick video today on how to be more rational in order to recover from OCD. I was just having this conversation with someone just yesterday, and I thought it would be a good one to cover in a short video over here because there's a slight misconception and a slightly skewed approach in how we try to think more rationally. So when we read and when we hear about recovering from OCD with a more rational mindset or trying to be more rational, what we try to do is we try to almost force like a more rational perspective, or we try to force acceptance through like this rational mindset, right? Because we think that, oh, this is what is going to get us recovered. This is the perspective that is going to make me feel better and calmer. So I need to try to adopt it, right? And it almost becomes like this like mechanical kind of, or like, having a wound and applying some medicine on it. It kind of like, that's the kind of approach we start to have with trying to be more rational. And the other analogy that I think is very important to highlight over here, which I think gives another understanding of why we approach rational thinking in the wrong way, is because we try to approach it like a school exam. So if you know that, let's say that you are studying history, right? And you have to give arguments for points of views of two leaders, let's say, in history, right? And you know that one leader A and leader B, so you know that writing about leader A is going to give you more marks. So even though you personally align more with leader B, so then you will try to memorize or try to really learn, oh, what was it that leader A was saying, or like what was his perspective, because you know that's going to get you more marks, while secretly you're still what do you call it, you're still like believing in leader B personally, right? So what that kind of approach is like, there's this kind of memorization and almost like rote learning what the rational perspective is. Because oftentimes when we are speaking to people on a call or in the WhatsApp groups or in a webinar, people say that, oh, what is the rational perspective for this that I can, really adopt or try to put my mind in? And just by that question, you can tell that people are trying to almost rote learn or trying to memorize that kind of rational perspective, so that when the time comes when they're feeling anxious or when they're not feeling that great or panicking, they can kind of like really enforce it or try to like say it almost as a mantra, or try to read it over, or try to like again paste over their thoughts, like, okay, this is the rational perspective, it's not going to be so bad, no, I can still live like this, I can still be okay, I can still I'll still be fine even if my fears are true. It's almost, again, that's kind of the mechanical kind of fix. It's almost the same as when we are trying to say certain statements or mantras in our head to keep ourselves calm, or if we're trying to say that no, it's not OCD, it's not real, it's OCD, it's not real, it's OCD, when we're trying to reassure ourselves that way. So it's kind of like the same way. And rational thinking doesn't work that way, because you are trying to adopt rational thinking without actually believing in it. That's why it becomes like the wrong approach when you try to memorize it. You're trying to use it as just a tool without having to actually push yourself to change that perspective that you're currently holding that is not helping you. So you really have to also believe it, and that doesn't mean you have to force believing it. And that's the other thing, when people are trying to look at different perspectives, or they're trying to do an exposure, or especially when they're trying to dispute their irrational beliefs, what they do is they try to force themselves to believe it so that they can start to feel good very quickly. And that's the thing, you cannot believe something forcefully. And then the other question comes, how can I start to believe rational thinking, or how can I start to believe that rational perspective? How can I start to believe what I'm trying to dispute out on paper? And then that is another gradual process. We have to remember that trying to adopt another perspective or trying to change our beliefs is not like a quick fix. We say that all the time. It doesn't happen quickly. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen over the course of a few days. It really, really takes a gradual it's a gradual process. It takes its sweet time to really like start to make us think really differently. Because, and the second part of it is also when we start to change our actions, is that when we start to believe things. If we are constantly doing compulsions, if we are really living a life of avoidance, if we are constantly seeking reassurance or constantly confessing our thoughts or doing other sorts of like, outward compulsions or mental compulsions, obviously our brain is not going to believe any differently, because our behaviors and our brains are crammed with all these like compulsive behaviors and all these behaviors that aren't really helping us. So when we start to change that, when we start to cut our compulsions, when we stop really asking for reassurance, when we stop doing those little bits of behaviors, those subtle behaviors that are still giving us that dose of relief, that dose of comfort and certainty and control, when we start to take those away, we start to make more space for newer perspectives to actually genuinely come in and settle in. Because our brain doesn't believe a rational perspective unless it is demonstrated to it, unless we demonstrate the rational perspective for it through our actions. So, for example, if we are doing compulsions, so if let's say someone has HOCD, someone believes they're gay, and they're compulsively trying to go and talk to girls so that they can somehow feel attraction towards them, so that they can reassure themselves that no, I am still straight, right? So what would happen is that, but then they would be like, oh, what's the rational perspective of it? That okay, even if I'm gay, even if I like men, things won't be that bad, right? But again, like they are still doing compulsions. So how will the brain believe that it's not so bad to be gay if you are still trying to tell yourself that no, I'm straight, I'm straight, I'm straight, I'm straight? That's exactly why it is important to work on your worst case scenario and move towards it, right? So when you start to cut that compulsion, when that person will start to cut that compulsion of talking to girls when he's feeling triggered, and he'll start to make more room for uncertainty in his life, he will therefore show himself and therefore his brain that sitting with that uncertainty, sitting with that lack of relief, sitting with the discomfort, and sitting without that immediate calmness of like no, okay, I'm straight. Sitting like that is actually not as bad as he was making it out to be. Of course, this takes a lot of trial and error, because it's going to be difficult initially. You are going to feel really uncomfortable when you really cut back on that compulsion that you've been doing for so long. However, when you start to do it more and more and more and more, your brain starts to get accustomed to it, and it starts to see that, okay, actually, the rational perspective that I was trying to adopt is actually kind of true. I can handle this discomfort. It really is not as bad as I was thinking. And then you start to make more room for like, okay, even if I was gay, let's say I did turn out to be gay tomorrow, then like my life would not completely fall apart. I can genuinely still form relationships with other people, find love, have a family, all the things that I want to work on. I mean, and obviously this goes into a greater detail, and I mean, it's not as straightforward as that. It really takes a while to break down that irrational belief and that fear with HOCD. But I'm just trying to like explain an example of like when you start to make room for it by changing your behaviors, then it's only then that you start to really adopt that rational perspective and start to make room for it, and also start to really believe it, because you are opening yourself up to that possibility of your worst case scenario being true. So yeah, I just want to quickly come on here and talk about that, because I think it's really important to sometimes highlight our approach with rational thinking, and that it's not something that you have to rehearse in your head. It's not something that you have to memorize or something you have to rote learn so that you can keep yourself good. It's about genuinely changing your perspectives, and that comes both with like rationally breaking things down on paper, disputing opening your mind up to different perspectives, but also changing your behaviors, because that is a very, very key part of it. And both those things then come together to be like, oh, okay, I feel better now. So yeah, I hope this was helpful for you. Let me know in the comments. Ask me any question if you want to about this. Let me know what other topics you want me to cover specifically, and I'll get to those in the next video. Bye.